Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for the Fleche Wallone men's recap. One of the shortest favourites you'll see, I think, for any major race or one-day race I think I've ever seen. Poggy given like 66-70% implied probability to win before the race started, and that's because of this uphill steep finish on Murderwee, 1.1 Ks at about 10-11%. But Fleche Wallone, even though it's every year it does end the same way in the men's race, it actually is very difficult and attritional beforehand. There is so much up and down of these Wallonian climbs around Liège, 1.3K, 7.5%. They do the Murderwee 3 times at least as well. So there is a lot of energy sapping in the 193Ks before Murderwee, but it feels like a really weird Fleche Wallone this year, like a transition year, Benji. No Van der Breggen. And also, although Cavalli won last year, but no Bala, no Jala, and no Roglic. Yeah, I found it really, apart from Pogačar, I really didn't know too much who would do well apart from, say, Woods, who's consistent here.
Exactly. I was looking at the start list in advance to this race, and I saw, okay, well, Pogačar is here. He's been in amazing form, but last year he didn't have a great result, 12. But then again, looking closer at last year's race, positioning was a bit of an issue. He was in a bad position on the Murderwee, but so were others that finished in front of him. So what was the reason that he had a bad result? Was it the personal issues that led to his absence at LBL that might have had an influence on his performance? We don't know that. And you're kind of guessing of, can Pogačar actually do this length of climb? On paper, he should be able to, but his performances on these type of climbs have not been amazing in the past. And you're over-analyzing everything. And in the end, you look at the star list and you're like, oh, Aramburu, will he work for Mazda? Will Guerrero get a chance at Movistar? And then you look at other teams and they're like, Turns is not there, and Alaphilippe is not here, and Valverde is not here.
Blasov's not here.
Yeah. Is it?
So many punchers. Roglic, Vingegaard. Like, Jumbo sent Benoit and Volta, but Roglic
they had no chance.
Who?
I believe 0 chance that Volta or Benoit would top 3 this race.
Again, Poggy and co. Yeah, probably not. That's the point. Like, their 2 best riders for this race weren't here. And, Remco's coming down from the mountain on Sunday. Pogačar's been down from the mountain forever. Like, Roglic is the co-leader, co-sharer of the Murderwee record. Not, but Jala beat him in the end. And he's not here. And to be honest, Jonas, the way he's climbing in Pace Vasco, if Landa's doing as well as he did today, he was a much more realistic shot for the podium. So it's, I don't know, that credit to Poggy, I guess, was what I'm trying to say here, for lining up at all these races, trying to do the Ardennes triple. Yep. After winning Tour of Flanders and winning Paris-Nice. Like, it's really impressive, and he's making cycling not just about the Tour de France. But anyway, I gotta say, Benji, I was editing the women's race, and I had a good spidey sense of what would happen in this race. All this talk that wasn't Poggy goes on the Côte de Chirave. That is, file that in. The Poggy is going to attack on the Cipressa.
No. I believe that on this parkour, there's much more to do early than in the Milan-San Remo parkour. Because, for example, I still believe, and I stand by my take, if last year Remco Evenepoel attacks on the Murderwee, the second last Murderwee, he wins that bloody race, and we don't see Alaphilippe coming third or fourth in that race. Quickstep would be happy after that race going into Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But that being said, I'm not sure if he would have an LBL the same way then afterwards. Nonetheless, when it comes to this one, I wasn't necessarily expecting Pogačar to go on the second last Murderwee or Côte de Chirave or the Côte de Ref, the one before the Chirave. And in reality, we all want that to happen. We all want this race to break open early, and there's often some attacks in the early phase of this race, but not the notable ones. But we want that because of our entertainment, and not because of the rider's best chance to win. Because in reality, your best chance to win is if you wait on the Murderwee. That is the case for most riders, except for Remco Evenepoel. He needs to go on the second last Murderwee, and I stand by that take.
He can beat Poggy on Murderwee. I'm convinced.
If he goes the second last Murderwee, I want the race to be fun, okay?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, teams like a Bahrain with a London, like Morich never is going to compete on Murderwee really seriously, although they got a good result here. But yeah, breakaway. Is there anyone before? There was Søren Kragh Andersen, Benji. You tell me who was in the. I know there was Søren Kragh Andersen, but you let us know who was in the break. It did go pretty far.
Georg Zimmerman and Søren Kragh Andersen were the most important factors in the breakaway. Some other riders in there like Hinsgol, Daryl Impey gets a ball, Garcia Pierna does that Spanish dude on Equipo Kern that we kept hyping up because he won that Spanish time trial championships on an Equipo Kern bike.
Go.
And then he did nothing afterwards. He was also in the break.
Hey.
It's true. It's true. Anyway, 40k to go. We're heading towards the second last Muur de Huy. And the two leftover guys from that breakaway are Zimmerman and Kragh Andersen. And we see this pattern created by UAE. In a sense, every time they go towards a hill, they position themselves well. And they use 1 or 2 domestiques per hill to set tempo. A higher tempo than it would have been in previous years, I think. Because in previous years, I felt like the tempo on climbs was very limited, right? On the second last Muur de Huy and so forth. I feel like here we had a bit more tempo where they tried to make it somewhat harder for the pure punchers because Milano-San Remo style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and usually on these early Muur de Huys, you literally see it like 7-10 wide, as you said, and it's like really all the second tier sort of or third tier domestiques like just sort of blocking it up, making sure they get over, making sure no one attacks. But yeah, UAE just like each climb, they just seem to give a little, like 1 minute, just little rev, and then ease off a little bit, but just enough to push into the climb, make sure Pogačar was in good position, and then eased off a little bit. Kind of like how they paced Mur de Pagure last year in the Tour de France. It's quite similar. But yeah, it's an attritional race no matter how slow or quick they go over these climbs that are all steep, and Muur de Huy going over it in a group is going to be hard when you do it 3 times. So when did Vavaka go? Because there was, should we fast forward to second Huy? Second last Huy.
Well, we're talking about the second last Huy. We're like also like the positioning of Huy on that climb. He followed someone on the second last Muur de Huy, which was the legendary attack by Samuele Battistella. An Astana man showed up at the front of the group, and I was like, thank you, because I was hoping Pogačar would do something here. Obviously, he wouldn't, clearly, because he was sitting in 10th position, yodeling at his troops, who were riding at the front at a decent tempo. Battistella launched, and I think Vervaeke, no, not Vervaeke, I think Walter was in his wheel, and some other people joined him in the wheel, and they had like a 4 to 5 man group for like 10 seconds. By that time, the UAE squadron had once again closed it again. Pogačar doing a tiny bit of work as well there to keep the peloton in one piece. And then the shot went to the breakaway and it turned back to the peloton group, and then Samuele Battistella was riding off alone. And then a bit later, we saw that Vervaeke was bridging. So we now have 4 riders that were converging at the front of the race. That breakaway is now Zimmerman, Kragh Andersen, Battistella, and Vervaeke. And about these 4 guys, even with Vervaeke bridging, with Battistella bridging, the rider that was doing the most work in that group was Søren Kragh Andersen, I believe. He was railing corners, no?
Yeah, and after being in the break all day, super impressive. He was not happy with Battistella at all. They had a little bit of disagreement, Rubio de Gent style, and then Vervaeke would go into the distance when he was just trying to do his turn, and then they'd bring him back. Eventually, Vervaeke did go clear of that group. He looked really, really good. Quickstep obviously didn't have Alaphilippe or Evenepoel here. They had, I think Van Wilder was their man to try something from the main group, but everyone else got pretty much a free roll, which makes sense. And then we get to the other climbs, and we see like a few forays, like Sam Oman moves a little bit, and there's people on his wheel, and Pogačar's UAE just playing it cool this whole race. Pogačar's not panicking. He's letting she, Bennett did a really good job in this phase between second last Huy and maybe the Côte de Charav. Just controlling things, not letting dangerous moves go up the road or groups of 2 or 3 riders. They just got Vervaeke on 40 seconds, and that's going to come down. We all know that a solo rider cannot stay ahead before last Huy. So UA just completely in control, and Ulysses Bennett, he or she for Pog in this last phase were just they just locked down the race and kept it difficult. It was just really, really impressive.
Exactly, and Vervaak eventually, like you said, went off alone on that last Giraffe climb, and I feel like the tempo was like solid on that Giraffe climb, with Ulysses really doing solid work there, with Hirschi also doing work there and so forth. And Healy was also in third position. I was like, is Healy actually going to try something here? But that did not happen, so we were heading towards the last Mur de Huy. One more thing, on the Giraffe climb with 6.6k to go, Higita was at the back of the group, dropped, Aliotti was trying to get him back, and he looked like he had energy, so there is the possibility that he had a mechanical before that climb, based on how I saw it. Unless he insta-dropped and then was like, oh, I've still got energy in the back pocket, and went up again. I don't know. It was weird. It was a weird situation. That being said, he was out of the race as a consequence of it. And they're heading towards the final climb, and we see a proper lead out by UAE, because positioning is key on the Mur de Huy. Let's be honest about that. Everybody wants to be in a good position. The higher you're up, the less energy you spend moving up on the climb itself. And we see that in the way that UAE is trying to get forward, Movistar is trying to get forward, and they kind of fell. UAE are able to get a solid lead out done by Ulysses once again with a hell of a pull. Hirschi in the wheel takes over the second that Ulysses is done for. Pogacar in the wheel of Hirschi, and that's how they head towards that climb. But Movistar, for example, I see Aramburu on one side of the road, Maz on the other side of the road. They clearly had multiple leaders here. They had no decision like, this rider is who we're going to go for, or this rider, which on Mur de Huy I kind of understand, knowing that Aramburu got second into the Wallonne on Mur de Huy last year, but that was against, I was going to say Belgian farmers, but Alaphilippe won that, so that's wrong.
Yeah. But Mas has not been in good shape. Mas has not been in the shape that's good enough to say you can't have a chance at all here. But yeah, there's no Valverde here for Movistar. He should have come back. There was a crash.
He would have podiumed.
Do we mention the crash with Paulus?
We haven't mentioned it, but now you have.
I think Paulus, I would have been interested to see how he went on this climb today. He's been in good shape. He obviously was very strong at Flanders. He crashed out at Amstel Gold Race. I don't know how the crash affected him. Obviously not enough to make him not start this race. And so he and Healy were obviously their leaders. That was a real shame to see him basically out of 2 races in a row. It also, Pogacar was very close to that crash and just narrowly avoided it. Remember these roads, these fast Wallonian roads, they basically ended Alaphilippe's mid-season last year in Liège when he crashed badly and Bardet was looking after him. Gijs Leemreizer was also out of the race. So it's a tricky run-in. It's still a large group though. And the inevitable happens, Benji. It's the run into the Mur de Huy. Louis Vervaak is caught. UAE is setting up. Here she's the last man for Pogacar, and he basically drops him off with 1,300, 1,200 meters to go. Who was the Israel rider positioning Mike Woods? Was it Neylands? I think it was.
I think it was Neylands, yes.
He did an outstanding job. Positioning has been a problem for Mike Woods in a lot of racing. It's a large group, and Neylands basically drops him off second wheel into the base of Mur de Huy. That I thought this Woods has a real chance here because, yeah, the main problem he normally has is that the positioning, not the watts on out of the saddle on the steep gradients. We see Sheffield moving up on the left-hand side, Benji, but Sol's Pidcock. I couldn't see Pidcock, and yet Sheffield's move was quite strong. Same with Morich. He was, I think, going for Landa. Bilbao had done work before, but Poggy seemed to, in my view, his plan was to ride just like really hard near the front and not respond directly to accelerations in the first half of the climb and to keep his powder dry for the last half, which I think is the smart approach. And no one really tested him. It was just, well, do you think Woods didn't really know what to do?
Woods seemed like he was in that typical position at the front of the group in Mur de Huy where you're trying to stay at the front. You don't want to get boxed in, but you also don't want to ride too fast. So you're trying to like make your tempo balanced with the other riders riding next to you, kind of half-wheeling Pogacar to make sure that he doesn't come around you and boxes you in so that the others can't come around you and box you in as well. But by doing that, he blocked the one person indirectly by accident, of course, that was trying to attack on the early phase of this climb, which was Bardet on the right side tried to push up where there was a gap, but like Woods moved to the side before Bardet was remotely even close to where he needed to be to move into the attack. So Bardet looked like he was going to try something early. I'm pretty sure people would have responded to that and just sat on the wheel, and Bardet might have started a few attacks like that, but in the end, they're riding next to each other. They're trying to half-wheel each other halfway to Mutagui, right?
Pretty much, and that cost Bardet so much momentum. Like, I would have been interested to see what would have happened. Would Woods have made Pogačar close that? Pogačar, if you look at the rear on shot, he's constantly left shoulder checking because he's got Woods to his right and Bardet to his right. He's 2/3 the way over to the right-hand barrier, and he's making sure he's constantly half-wheeling whoever's on his left to make sure he keeps his left side open. Because he's like, if he gets swamped, boxed in by someone going on a fly, people coming over the top like a Benoit or someone like that, that's maybe how he loses the race, where he can't open up when he wants to, and that doesn't happen. Woods goes, Bardet accelerates after him, Poggy's in the saddle still, which is a dangerous, and he's looking rock solid upper body wise, and then through the left-hand bend, accelerates, gets a gap. Mollema and Schkelmoser were both... Yeah, they were both going... Wait, Schkelmoser's on Trek, right?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. Well, they were kind of both riding side by side on opposite sides of the road, and...
Ciccone too. I think he might have been Ciccone.
Not Mollema. I'm living in 2021. It was Ciccone and Schkelmoser were riding on opposite sides of the road, basically at tempo. They didn't force Pogačar out of his comfort zone, and yeah, he just did the business, justifying his short quote this morning and winning with a couple of seconds in hand with time to celebrate over the line. And Schkelmoser second, Mikel Landa third.
Yeah,
looking good. No snap, but just a heavy, steady pace. 3 seconds to Woods, who probably his best positioning, but didn't have the legs this year. Ciccone 5th, Lafay 6th, a very good result for him. Then Benoit Van Hills, Bardet will be disappointed with 9th, and then Barguil 10th.
I'll have to look back at the race itself at the last kilometer a few more times, but I feel like Ciccone and Schkelmos were both on different sides of the road, and I feel like Ciccone was in the better position. He had the worst result here. If Schkelmos was in the position of Ciccone, how close would he have gotten? Because he really had a solid snap still, eh? Like, he got relatively close to Pogačar to finish within the same time over the finish line. So it's obvious it was a gap. There was a gap. Pogačar did celebrate. He probably still wins Pogačar, but Schkelmos would have gotten closer if he had a tiny bit better of a position. But it shows that Schkelmos has some chance to win her in the future, eh? But then again, start list this year was a bit lackluster, that to say, but that doesn't take away from the victory of Pogačar either, I would say, because this man has done so much this year. I've got here a list sent to me by Matt Case on Twitter, and I just lost the list, so I'm going to have to do it from the top of my head. He has 10 wins out of 19 starts, 14 top 5s, and if I recall, only 5 stages that he was outside of the top 10 of a race.
12 wins this
12
year.
12 wins?
Yeah.
Then it's wrong. The list is wrong, sorry.
6 at World Tour level or 7 at World Tour level, 3 Paris stages, Paris GC, Tour of Flanders, Amstel Gold, Fleche Wallone, 3 stages of Andalusia and GC, and
GC's
6th monument, Jaén Paraíso Interior, to start the season. Better than Strada Bianca, I say. So,
no
credit to him. Like, 18 race days, 3,500 UCI points. Absolutely ridiculous. 3 wins on the trot. Liège this weekend. I presume Liège is then going to go, probably have a decompression week and then go to altitude and then do a preparation 1 week. Yeah, could he do it?
But the thing when it comes to Poggi as well, I don't see the impossibility that he does a Giro this year, but I think it depends on whether he wins the Tour de France this year. Next year, sorry. Next year, I mean next year. But I think it will depend on whether he wins the Tour this year again. That being said, every time that a rider starts winning as much as Pogačar is doing, you have the uprise of voices that are saying, ooh, this is getting boring. This is kind of getting annoying that we've got the same winner every single time. And while that is kind of the case, where you're kind of like, oh, it's the same guy winning again, it's not Pogačar's fault, eh? That he's better than the rest. Like,
no, it's not his fault. I think it's valid if you watch a race that has an uninteresting final to say that final was uninteresting. Like, Strade Pidcock was solo, but the gap was always so close.
Yeah.
So you thought there's tension here. I'm trying to think of an example.
Amstel.
Yeah. I mean,
Was
there's
boring.
worse ones even than that, probably. Like Classica High-End
Women.
Interior or something, or the Andalusia ones where he rides away with 25. Like, this is not entertaining, but that's not Pogacar's fault. And I would say, where's Roglic? Where's Vingegaard? Where's Alaphilippe? Where's Valverde? Like, that would have been, because if Pogacar still beats those guys because he's not beaten them on this finish before, that would have been, even more exciting. So it's not Pogacar's fault for turning up to these races. And yeah, he did the business. I think he did a 2:45 on Murder-Wee, which is pretty sharp. Roglic and Jala did a 2:40 in 2021, but 2:45 is good enough in a lot of years to win, especially when I would say in the first 500 meters, no one apart from Sheffield really pushed it. Like Enric Mas, from memory, did a really hard lead out either last year or the year before for Valverde. But yeah, what next for Pog, Benji? Liège this weekend?
Looking forward to it. Remco's there though, so we've got a competitor that might be on his level for that race, and we won't spoil the preview yet. That's for the actual preview of LBL, but I'm looking forward to it because it makes me more. I don't know. It rises me more up that we've got actual like titans fighting it out against each other in LBL.
Yeah. Remco doing it before the Giro, it's a little bit of an unusual step.
But it's good for us.
It's good for us. I'm not complaining. It definitely makes the race a lot more interesting, particularly with Alaphilippe just out of action at the moment. I'm trying to pick out some other. So my favorite, Roger Adria, the Catalan on Equipo Kern Farmer, 12th, a nice result on 9 seconds. Aaron Broe, unlucky 13th. Van Wilder, 14th. Disappoint. Oh, Tobias Helen Johannesson.
Enemy's back.
Yeah, that's a good result considering his shape so far this season, and he's been sick or injured. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
he's not the enemy anymore.
Really? Is he your friend now?
Since Vine won the Vuelta stages, he's not enemy anymore.
Character development.
Did he drop him in Tour of Norway, Vine 2? I think that might have ended it. He cooked him on Galsterstappen. So,
okay.
No longer enemy. Mars 17th is a little bit disappointing compared to where he's been. Quinton Hermans 2, 19th, and Pidcock 18th for Ineos. He's done better here before. Where did he come in 2021? He came 6th, and that's when they did a shit hot time. So in 2021, Pidcock on Murder-Wee did a 2:51 Murder-Wee, and this year he's done quick maths, which are not so quick. 15 plus 15, a 3-minute. So just a bit off, 9 seconds off his 2021 shape. Obviously, the races could have been harder before today, so that's very crude. But yeah, what's going on with Pidcock?
I know, like, he's relatively okay when it comes to his form. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been third in Amstel Gold Race. I do feel like we see this pattern that when he drops, he seemed to capitulate quite a bit of time. We saw that in the Ronde van Vlaanderen and Amstel, and also in the Tour de France last year. I feel like that one time he properly dropped, he fell through GC. Then again, that was a pretty hard stage. It was one of the most legendary stages of the Tour de France almost ever. So, I don't know. There's some inconsistency.
He said he has no snap. That's what he said in the interview afterwards. He said, I have no snap.
But he was the rider with the snap in the past. What happened?
I don't know. But maybe he transitioned to GC rider and it'd be better for GC, or he's been on the TT bike. I don't know. But just something to watch. I'm just trying to pick out some other. Gadu DNF'd. He started the race 6, so sorry, he was sick on the weekend. Pardon?
Was it allergies? Because I swear he spoke about allergies in Itzulia and then also in Amstel, but then sickness is something new I heard. So kind of like between sickness and allergies right now when it comes to Gadu.
I remember it was before the race. He said he had something, but bronchitis. He's had bronchitis since Tour of the Basque Country, so nothing better to recover from bronchitis than doing a hard 200K hilly race. Love to see it. So they're doing their best probably to ruin the rest of his season, like in 2020, whenever. Cosnefra also was sick and had to DNS or abandon, which is a shame too. I wanted to see him up there. He was pretty handy coming third in Brabants. So hopefully Guru gets back into good shape and health before the Dauphiné and Tour, which I'm sure he's doing. But like, it's not a lot of time when you stack it all together. Like, you have a week off, then you go altitude, then you go Dauphiné, then you go back to altitude, then you go the Tour. Like, if you missed a 2-week period, it can really set you back, even though the Tour is 2 and a bit months away.
Exactly. Now, we've spoken about riders that did not start. We've spoken about the race itself, but when do we 1v1 on the Muur de Huy, my friend?
Oh, us. Mate, I didn't think you were allowed to go past the demarcation zone into Wallonia.
I might not be able to get back into Belgium after I said another Eddie Merckx sentence on Twitter.
Dude, I don't get baited by the sports stuff anymore.
No, I find it funny. Like, everybody keeps glorifying Eddie Merckx, but he got 3 positive doping tests and nobody talks about it.
Yeah, but was Pantani on glorified, and they have, Memorial Marco Pantani, because if you die, all sins are forgiven. That's how things work, pretty much. Anyway. Oh, Amstel Gold Race. That was the other news. We forgot. The car. So it's
Draft doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, the organizer of Amstel Gold Race said the car offered no advantage to Pog. Again, I don't think Pog was getting caught by Healy at all. Yeah. But to say that it didn't help is ludicrous. Also, I had some pros message me that MVDP was given a pretty hectic tow in the 2019 crazy finale off camera. And then Thijs Zonneveld unearthed some footage of Nicky Terpstra getting the end result of Nicky Terpstra getting the biggest slingshot in the Amstel Curacao race back in whenever. So it's just, this is a World Tour race, and this is Mickey Mouse stuff that would be called out in a 1-1.
Yeah.
Not a World Tour race. So when a DS gives a sticky bid on too long, and the comment says they get €500 fine, UCI point suspension, and something happens. What's going to happen here?
I don't expect anything to happen, unfortunately, but Leo van Vliet, the guy that's organizing it, like, the organization of Amstel has been pretty shit for a while now, let's be honest about it. And to have these things happen multiple times now, according to pro riders and so forth, then it's clearly an issue, and they should probably replace him at this point. But I'm pretty sure that he's put there by someone. It's not like he owns the Amstel Gold Race, eh? He got that position. He was assigned to that position. Just get that guy to race.
Wasn't this the same guy who endorsed his 16-year-old daughter dating like 27-year-old Tom Bonen back in the day? Man, cycling, what a sport.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I hope, will something change? Probably not. Will we see some Mickey Mouse stuff on Amstel Gold next year? Probably.
Yeah.
Unless something changes. But it is what it is. Just remember, flags fly forever. Pidcock rightful winner in 2021. We'll go to our grave. I'll go to my grave saying that. But that's all from us. We'll have the Liège-Bastogne-Liège preview we're recording tomorrow morning. We'll have that up tomorrow afternoon. Until then, ciao.